Good morning, and thanks so much for tuning in. You're watching Trade Talk on BQ Prime. My name is Alex Matthew, and with me is Hiral Dadia. Morning, Hiral.
Good morning, Alex.
And happy Friday to you.
Wish you the same. And it's a long one in terms of the weekend as well.
Absolutely. So let's see what the mood is, whether there is some cheer in the Indian equity markets. We're at the start of a new series, the October series, the September series, perhaps one to forget very quickly, Hiral.
Absolutely. And what's happening is because of the long weekend as well, there's not too much of participation that's coming in from retail investors. So as Agam has been mentioning, yes, that consolidatory phase has continued, but yesterday was absolutely interesting as well if you see in terms of markets, because as you mentioned about the September series, clearly a 1.4% increase in terms of Nifty 50 is what we've seen in the September series. Bank Nifty 0.7% higher. So no major moves coming in terms of Bank Nifty. But what's interesting from a sector-specific perspective, Alex, is the energy sector was the top performing sector in the September series. And overall, if you see, it was, the energy sector declined the most, I beg your pardon, which was down 1.9%. And it was the telecom which was the top performing sector with gains of around 7%. And we were just talking about Vodafone yesterday.
Absolutely. But I think the biggest talking point heading into the weekend is going to be IT, because in yesterday's session as well, you saw quite a precipitous fall, if you think about it, for the benchmark index. Going by what we've seen over the past couple of weeks as well, you saw a 1% fall. We, in fact, broke past that 19,500 mark on the downside for just a tick, and then ended up at around that 19,520 mark. But more importantly, the IT index was down over 2%.
Absolutely, there was pressure, and I think that was an anticipation of what would come out of Accenture earnings, as well as if you see IT majors in the US, they have been struggling as well. But overall, if you see in terms of stock-specific action yesterday, if you talk about the F&O stocks, the ones which declined with high volumes yesterday, we were names like Tech Mahindra, as you mentioned. The stock was down 4.5%. Volumes were really strong. Marico was another one. Muthoot Finance, Asian Paints, again an impact with regards to where crude prices go. And we do have one of the non-executive directors, second generation founders who did expire yesterday as well. So there was some rub-off effect, sentimental impact there. Cummins India was another one as well. But clearly yesterday's session, negative. We ended almost near the day's lowest levels. Broader markets were also in the negative, almost a 1.3% decline on the mid cap and a 0.4% decline on the small cap index.
Yeah, and I'll be actually quite curious about how the crude sensitive stocks react in trade today as well. In trade yesterday, Asian Paints was the second worst performer, dropping well over 3% in trade.
Berger was down.
Berger was down as well.
Though you had names like HOEC, Oil India, your exploratory companies, which saw some smart moves. HOEC was up around almost 8 to 10%.
Certainly. And with crude having dropped off that peak on account of technical resistance to those levels, because we've seen such a big spurt in a very short period of time, it'll be interesting to see how these react in trade today. But let's take a few cues from the F&O space as well. It has been covered, but let's run through the key details.
Right. So if you see in terms of the F&O side as well, as I just mentioned about the series already, September has been good, but moving into October as well, it does seem to be a phase of consolidation, because the open interest addition, as Agam has been pointing out, is indicating that we would still be slightly below that 20,000 mark. So it's going to be interesting how the series pans out, but overall, that consolidatory phase expected to continue. Now, whether a spurt will come back in the month of November during Diwali is what we need to wait and watch.
And of course, the next big event, as we've been pointing out, is going to be the RBI monetary policy when we return. 4th to the 6th is when that meeting is taking place. So towards the end of next week's trade, you will see the reaction to that. We're widely expecting another pause in the interest rate cycle, and also what is playing out in the US, because there you have the yields that came off overnight, as some relatively positive data has come out. And of course, later today, you will see an important inflation gauge number that will come out, one that the Fed looks at very closely, and that is going to have a bearing on trade in the US.
But with that as well, the other aspect what you're mentioning about yields as well is going to be interesting from a bond market perspective is we've seen JP Morgan, which has added India to the bond index. FTSE has come out and said that India is still on the watch list, right? So, what would that actually mean for the Indian bond markets, and how yields would react to it is going to be interesting for us to watch out for. And to that, the continuation on the RBI.
No, certainly. And if you look at the 10-year benchmark yield, you will notice that when that announcement came at the start of the week, you saw a very, very quick drop from around 7.17% or thereabouts for the 10-year benchmark all the way down to below 7.1%, and then it moved up very smartly as well. So it hasn't held on to those drops, and 7.2% or thereabouts is where you can expect it to hover around for the near term, at least with inflation trending upwards and the pressure on account of crude. But for now, let's turn to the key pack to watch, as we mentioned, which is the IT pack. And that's because of the Accenture results that were announced overnight. And most importantly, while it missed the estimates on a consensus basis, the guidance for the year ahead is what everyone is focusing on, and it was a lower than expected guidance. To tell you about all of those key details and what you need to bear in mind from the perspective of the Indian investor investing into the Indian IT pack, Tushar is joining in. Tushar, good morning. What can you tell us about the key details of the Accenture results and the possible rub-off effect onto Indian IT stocks?
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Hiral. The most important part here is that Accenture is like a barometer for Indian IT. Now, like what you mentioned about the longer weekend, after the weekend is over, we hurtled right into the earnings season, which will start with the IT pack. So Accenture results become even more important in that context. As far as results is concerned, revenue was up 4% to $16 billion. The operating income was down 15.85%. Operating margin was down 270 basis points to 12%. And the net profit was down about 18% to $1.37 billion for Accenture. Now, that's pretty disappointing. And like what Alex pointed out, that is, and then on top of that, Accenture has guided for 2 to 5% growth in FY24. Remember, Accenture follows the fiscal September to August. That means their fiscal FY24 will end in August. The 2 to 5% growth is against the 4.6% that was estimated. Now, what that means for Indian IT is that the guidance reflects that the challenging demand environment and a conservative approach by the management. Discretionary spending is still weak. Decision making by clients is still slower, and macro uncertainties still persist, and they all three are weighing on demand. According to a brokerage, MK, they believe that the recovery will happen, but it requires some kind of stability to come in the macro conditions. Alex.
Right. Thanks, Tushar, for getting us the details. And clearly, the commentary seems to be quite cautious with regards to Accenture. And this is in contrast with what the consensus estimates are actually pointing out to in terms of where Indian players are concerned, because they are actually building in a sharp rebound in terms of FY25. So it's going to be interesting to see whether it comes in, consonance with that. But clearly, just a quick mention of a couple of, IT names, where Macquarie has come out with a report wherein they've cut L&T Technology to a neutral, and they have a price target of 4,300. Tech Mahindra has been cut to a underperform, and they have a price target of 1,010. And Birla Soft has been cut to a neutral by Macquarie for a price target of 530. So interesting to see how the IT pack moves in trade today. And from there on, a whole host of broader market companies that will continue to remain in focus as well. Varsha standing by to get us more. Varsha, good morning. What do you have for us?
So a lot of companies that one needs to watch today. So first is Pidilite Industries. Now, everyone has heard about diversification. So let's see if this turns out to be diversification, because subsidiary Pidilite Ventures acquired 20% stake in toy maker Imagi Make Play Solution for rupees 20 crore. Now, which is engaged in the business of design, manufacturing, and distribution of educational toys, games, art, and hobby products. Then we have Uno Minda, which is a global manufacturer and supplier of proprietary automotive solution and systems to OEM, has announced to increase stake in Minda Westport Technologies Limited from 50% to 76%, 26%. The purchase consideration for 26% is approximately 14 crores. And Uno Minda and Westport is also amending its joint venture agreement to include future hydrogen components in addition to CNG and LPG components and kits. Minda Westport has reported revenue for rupees 181 crore in FY23, which has grown almost 3x in last 4 years. Then we have Emami, which has announced its foray into juice category with aloe fruit through strategic investment in Axiom Ayurveda Private Limited and its subsidiary. Company will acquire 26% equity stake for an undisclosed amount, and Axiom markets beverage products under the brand Aloe Fruit. Also, company has a range of carbonated beverages and also present in Ayurvedic healthcare juice segment under the Jeevan Raj brand. The company has its own manufacturing facility in Haryana and is setting up a new facility in Jammu at a cost of 160 crore. Then we have Godrej Agrovet, which has entered into strategic partnership agreement with Sim Darby Plantation per head. Now, the SDP is the world's largest producer of certified sustainable palm oil with production capacity of 1.87 million tons as of December 2022. Then we have Saregama India, where company has acquired 51.82% stake in Pocket Access Pictures for rupees 174 crore. Now, it will acquire another 41% in next 15 months. Now, the Pocket Aces boasts of an IP catalog of over 3,000 content pieces, ranging across web series and music videos, and releases over 30 new pieces content every day. Revenue for the same has grown by 34% CAGR over the last 4 years. Now, this will add to the Saregama's catalog, which will be a good asset for the company. Then we have Adani Companies, where Abu Dhabi-based IHC Capital Holding LLC said that it will dispose of its investment in Adani Green and Adani Energy Solution. Its subsidiaries Green Energy Investment Holding and Green Transmission have entered into definitive agreement with a buyer to dispose of their FDI investments in Adani Green Energy and Transmission. The decision is part of the overall portfolio rebalancing of IHC. The Green Transmission Investment holds 1.41% stake in Adani Green Solution. IHC did not disclose the name of the buyer to whom it plans to sell its stakes. Lastly, we have Cholamandalam Investment and Finance Company, where they are yet to launch of its QIP at a floor price of 1,200 per equity. Now, Cholamandalam further stated that it may offer a discount of not more than 5% on the floor price calculated for the QIP issues. Company would raise funds via equity component and issuance of compulsory convertible debentures, which will bear interest rate at a rate 7.5%.
Okay, interesting. So several updates. Thanks, Varsha, for bringing us those. And interesting that there are a few small deals, but still strategic in nature. So we'll have to see how they pan out over the longer period of time.
Absolutely. And specifically when you look at Imami as well, the brand Aloe Fruit itself is such a common one, and a lot of replicas that did come out for Aloe Fruit as well, in fact, over the years. So it's going to be interesting to see how Imami actually embarks on that journey with Aloe Fruit, because it was always known for that pulpy kind of an effect it had in its drink. And you have a Saregama, because Saregama also has been seeing a lot of investor interest lately. So I think both of these
and
will be on
Godrej
our
Consumer,
radar.
in my opinion, is important because they're getting into a long-term contract. We know how important palm oil is, and we've seen often over the course of several years that volatility in prices affects their margins in a very big way. So if they have a long-term large supply of palm oil,
A clear beneficiary on the margin front.
certainly. So again, we'll have to see how that pans out. For now, let's turn to certain other stocks that are also in the news. Himansh is joining in with a list. Himansh, good morning. What are you picking up?
So, in addition to the stocks that Varsha pointed out, there are a few more to watch out for. Firstly, Sun Pharma. The company has signed a letter of intent for a stake acquisition where it's acquiring 25% stake from Indi Pharma. Now, this is a Mexican subsidiary which was set up, and the transaction is expected to be complete by October 31st, and for an average cost around 77 odd crores. Then we have Tata Communications, where it's acquisition that it informed of back in June, I believe, for US-based Calera, which is a global group providing mobile communication services to financial institutions. It is expected to be complete by October 5th. The acquisition, which was valued at around $100 million, is a key one, because Calera has its presence across several countries apart from India, across US, Mexico, Italy, and other markets as well. Calera has a gross debt of almost 224 million on the books, and a net debt, on a net debt basis, it has about $150 million. Then coming on to NLC India, the company will set up 3 800 megawatt thermal power projects in Odisha, and the company has also signed a power purchase agreement with Gridco for a 400 megawatt plant for an investment between 19 to 20,000 crores. So the entire capacity of 2,400 megawatts is now tied up on a long-term basis in Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Kerala, and Odisha. Then KIOCL, the company has suspended its operations in the Mangalore pellet plant due to non-availability of iron ore fines and maintenance services. Then we have a Glenmark, where the company's outlook was revised to positive from stable by S&P, but S&P yet maintains its BB rating on the company. Now, this came in after Glenmark has entered into an agreement to sell 75% stake in GLS to Nirma for about 5,650 crores. Now, this stake sale is expected to accelerate the deleveraging, where I have noticed, Glenmark coming, the debt equity for the company coming from hundreds in about 2015 odd to almost about 30. So the ratio has been brought down significantly. So if this proceeds from the issue are used to deleverage further, S&P, the positive outlook reflects that they could perhaps enhance the ratings further. And lastly, we have MCX, where their plans to implement the new commodity derivatives platform for October 3rd, where the share, we also saw a huge spike, rising to almost 23-month high. So SEBI has come in with the advisory just this morning, where they have advised the exchange to hold off on the launch yet, and while this MCX will be, conducting its mock tests in the meantime while they get the
Yeah, I
regulatory
believe
approval.
that has to do with the writ petitions that were filed. There's a legal case in the Madras High Court,
Okay.
which I think the SEBI has asked the organization to wait for.
Mhm.
So for that clarity.
What's going to be the impact on the stock is going to be interesting,
Yes.
because
Mm.
MCX itself has moved up quite a lot in the last
Right.
couple of trading sessions as well, right?
Mhm.
So there could be some rub-off negative selling pressure that could come in
Right.
on the MCX in today's session. And Glenmark is going to be interesting to watch out
out
for on the back of the upgrade,
Credit rating outlook change, yeah.
change that S&P has given in, because clearly it does. I mean, and pharma has been in focus as well over the last couple of trading
Certainly.
sessions.
Right.
Himash, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
joining in, for giving us those details. Like Hiral said, a few stocks that will likely react very sharply in trade today. We said at the start IT, but there's also quite a few stocks that will react very sharply in all probability.
And a lot of FMCG names that are
Yeah.
in focus. Oberoi Realty has just come, some time back. Sorry, not Oberoi, Godrej Properties on the land acquisition. So there could be some momentum there as well. So that's all that we have in the secondary market. But again, action continues in the primary market as well. Mika today is standing by, taking it over from Himansh with regards to what's happening in the primary markets. What are the updates that you have for us?
So first we have a new IPO launching today. Plaza Wires IPO will go live today, and the issue will stay open till October 4th. The wire manufacturer plans to raise a fresh issue of 71.28 crores at a fixed price band between 51 and 54 rupees. The market value of the company at the upper price band of 54 rupees stands at 236.26 crores. Prior to the IPO, anchor investors subscribed to 3.70 million shares worth 200 million rupees at 54 rupees each. The proceeds of the IPO will be used as capex for setting up a new proposed manufacturing unit for working capital requirements and general corporate purposes. A little bit about the business. The company is engaged in the business of manufacturing and selling wires and selling and marketing of LT aluminum cables and fast-moving electrical goods. The company operates under the brand names of Plaza Cables, Action Wires, and PCG. And its key products include house wires and industrial cables. The company recorded a revenue of 182 crores in FY23 with the EBITDA and net profit margin of 8.55% and 4.11% respectively. Its listed peers will include companies like Cords Cable Industries, Paramount Communications, Ultracab India, etc. And then we have Valiant Laboratories, whose IPO went live on September 27th and will stay open till October 3rd. The IPO was subscribed 33% on day 1 and 71% on day 2. The second day bids were led by retail investors who subscribed 1.27 times, followed by non-institutional and institutional investors that subscribed 0.29 and 0.05 times. The company aims to raise a fresh issue of 152.46 crores rupees at a fixed price band between 133 and 140 rupees. The company is a bulk drug manufacturer who focuses on manufacturing paracetamol, which is a very common pain relief medicine. And the IPO proceeds will be used as capex and working capital investment by its subsidiary Valiant Advanced Sciences.
All right. Thanks, Mika, for all those details. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Trade Talk. We've covered quite a bit of ground, but there's lots more to cover, and we'll bring all of that to you in just a short while. All of that on the website bqprime.com. So do stay tuned.